Imagine a vault, not a steel box in a basement, but an entire country. A fortress surrounded by the snow-capped Alps, landlocked, with almost no natural resources of gold, oil, or diamonds, yet somehow holding over a quarter of all the wealth hidden across borders worldwide. We are talking about trillions of dollars sitting silently in accounts that, for decades, did not even have names attached to them, just strings of anonymous numbers. If you were an absolute monarch trying to stash your family fortune, a corrupt dictator embezzling a nation's treasury, an industrial titan dodging domestic taxes, or just a terrified family attempting to protect their life savings from impending war, there was only one place on earth you sent your money: Switzerland. But how did a tiny, seemingly neutral mountain nation become the undisputed, secret capital of the global financial elite? The answer does not start with underground military bunkers or modern offshore tax schemes. It starts in 1934 with a single, radical piece of legislation that transformed banking secrecy from a quiet business courtesy into a strict, undeniable criminal offense. Before the year 1934, if a Swiss banker blabbed about your bank account to someone else, you could sue them for breach of contract. It was a standard civil dispute, similar to any other breach of privacy in the business world. But the Swiss Banking Act of 1934 changed the rules of the global money game forever. Under Article 47 of this new law, any bank employee, auditor, or even an outside contractor who revealed the identity of an account holder to a third party, whether that party was a nosy journalist, a foreign police officer, or an international tax investigator, was no longer just facing a lawsuit or losing their job. They were instantly committing a federal crime, punishable by immediate prison time and ruinous fines. Think about the profound psychological barrier that single law created. The Swiss government effectively broadcast a message to the entire planet: we will lock our own citizens in a prison cell before we let anyone look inside our ledgers. Overnight, the nation became a financial black hole for global capital. Money checked in, but information never checked out. To understand why Switzerland took such an extreme, unprecedented step, we have to look at the absolute financial and political chaos consuming Europe at the precise moment the law was passed. The Great Depression was actively vaporizing wealth across the globe. International trade was collapsing, banks were shuttering by the thousands, and desperate, broke governments were frantically hunting for any remaining piles of cash they could tax, seize, or freeze to keep their failing economies afloat. At the very same time, aggressive totalitarian regimes were rapidly consolidating power right on Switzerland's borders. In Germany and France, authorities were beginning to treat capital flight as treason, sending undercover agents across borders to spy on wealthy citizens suspected of moving their money into foreign banks. Suddenly, having wealth in your home country was not just financially volatile, it was becoming a severe physical danger. The world's elite needed an untouchable sanctuary, and Swiss bankers were preparing to build the highest legal walls in human history. The immediate aftermath of the 1934 law turned the quiet financial districts of Zurich and Geneva into real-life spy thrillers. Foreign governments quickly realized that their wealthiest citizens were bleeding capital across the Swiss border, and they fought back using cloak-and-dagger tactics. During the late 1930s, French tax authorities and German Gestapo informants actively infiltrated luxury Swiss hotels. They sat in lobbies reading newspapers, memorizing the license plate numbers of foreign cars parked outside, and tracking wealthy individuals who took suspicious daytime strolls toward Paradeplatz, the beating heart of Swiss banking. Foreign operatives even attempted to bribe low-level bank clerks to hand over client lists. To the Swiss, these foreign espionage operations were an intolerable violation of national sovereignty. The criminal penalties of Article 47 were enforced with brutal efficiency, sending a clear warning to the world. Switzerland would protect its financial borders with the exact same ferocity that it protected its physical borders. Then came the ultimate crucible of the 20th century, World War II. While the rest of Europe was reduced to rubble by aerial bombardment and mechanized invasion, Switzerland remained an untouched, heavily armed island of neutrality. And inside its hushed, marble-floored banking halls, the most surreal financial paradox in human history began to play out. Because the Swiss banking system refused to discriminate based on nationality, politics, or ideology, the vaults became a sanctuary for everyone simultaneously. On one side of the ledger were desperate European families, aristocrats, and persecuted minorities, frantically depositing whatever gold, diamonds, and liquid capital they could smuggle out of their homelands before advancing armies confiscated everything they owned. On the exact same street, Axis regimes utilized the neutral Swiss banking apparatus to store capital and process complex international transactions, converting looted central bank reserves into hard foreign currency required to purchase essential war materials from neutral trading partners. The banks did not judge, and the ledgers did not speak. To the Swiss financial establishment, capital was simply capital, stripped entirely of its origin and moral weight by the impenetrable veil of statutory secrecy. It was during this turbulent era that the legendary mechanics of the Swiss numbered account were perfected into an art form of absolute privacy. When a high-net-worth client walked into a private Swiss bank, their identity was methodically erased from everyday operations. Upon opening an account, the client's legal name was stripped away and replaced by a random sequence of numbers or a discrete pseudonym, such as White Falcon or Blue Horizon. The regular bank tellers processing deposits, the accountants balancing the books, and the wire transfer operators moving millions across borders had no idea whose wealth they were actually handling. The master index, the single, solitary piece of paper on Earth that linked that random string of digits to a human being's passport, was locked away in a deep underground vault, accessible only by a tiny, elite circle of senior executive partners who were bound by the threat of prison. If foreign investigators or international courts demanded client names, the bank staff could look them in the eye and truthfully state that no such records existed in any accessible filing system. When the smoke cleared over Europe in 1945, the war was officially over, but the money did not leave. In fact, the dawn of the Cold War supercharged Switzerland's status as the financial epicenter of the planet. As the Iron Curtain slammed down across the European continent, a massive wave of capital fled westward. Wealthy elites trapped behind the Soviet sphere of influence desperately funneled whatever remaining assets they could salvage into the untouchable Alpine vaults before communist regimes nationalized private property. Simultaneously, the explosive post-war economic boom in Western Europe and the United States created a brand new class of ultra-wealthy industrialists, business tycoons, and celebrities. This new elite quickly discovered that Swiss secrecy was no longer just a vital shield against the devastation of war. It was the ultimate shield against the newly expanding income taxes of the modern welfare state. Throughout the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, the archetype of the Swiss banker evolved from a simple custodian of physical gold into a master of global wealth management. Ancient private banking houses that had existed for centuries cultivated a legendary reputation for discretion that bordered on religious devotion. These institutions did not advertise on billboards or push retail checking accounts. They operated out of unmarked, ivy-covered mansions where the front doors lacked even a company logo. A client did not merely open an account. They entered into a multi-generational covenant. To service their international clientele without raising the suspicion of foreign authorities, Swiss bankers became jet-setting nomads. They regularly traveled on discreet missions, meeting high-net-worth clients in private hotel suites across London, New York, Tokyo, and Buenos Aires. In these quiet rooms, cash transactions were finalized, and financial instructions were memorized. Networks of specialized couriers were routinely utilized to quietly transport physical wealth, often packed into literal suitcases, across the Swiss border, depositing it safely beyond the reach of domestic tax collectors and foreign financial regulators. Yet, the appeal of absolute secrecy extended far beyond tax-dodging businessmen and nervous aristocrats. The geopolitical chessboard of the Cold War transformed Switzerland into the world's primary clearinghouse for international espionage and covert operations. Because the nation remained fiercely neutral and legally bound to protect the identity of any depositor, it became the preferred financial playground for intelligence agencies on every side of the global conflict. The CIA, the KGB, and countless other covert organizations maintained quiet, untraceable accounts in Zurich and Geneva. They used this secure financial architecture to fund secret operations, pay informants, and move black budget capital across the globe without leaving a single verifiable paper trail. At the exact same time, widespread political instability across Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East triggered a massive influx of capital from autocrats and military strongmen. As regimes rose and fell in bloody coups, the world's most powerful rulers learned a critical lesson. Political power is temporary, but a Swiss bank account is permanent. By the late 20th century, this tiny, landlocked nation was quietly sitting on trillions of dollars in secret global assets, seemingly immune to the laws, courts, and moral judgments of the outside world. For nearly 80 years, the Swiss banking fortress seemed utterly invincible, a permanent fixture of the global financial architecture. But no empire is truly immortal, and the dawn of the 21st century brought a reckoning that nobody in Zurich or Geneva saw coming. The digital age made physical ledger books obsolete, and with it came the ultimate threat to absolute secrecy, the modern whistleblower. In the mid-2000s, a former American wealth manager at UBS named Bradley Birkenfeld walked into the offices of the United States Department of Justice with a briefcase full of explosive insider secrets. He revealed to American prosecutors exactly how the world's largest Swiss bank was actively helping tens of thousands of wealthy U.S. citizens hide billions of dollars from the Internal Revenue Service using smuggled diamonds, offshore shell companies, and encrypted hard drives. The fallout was catastrophic for the Swiss banking establishment. The United States government unleashed the full weight of its economic and geopolitical dominance. They did not just slap a regulatory fine on a single rogue bank. They threatened to cut the entire Swiss banking sector off from the U.S. dollar clearing system, an absolute death sentence for any financial institution operating in the modern global economy. Facing total isolation, the unbreakable wall of Swiss secrecy finally cracked. In 2009, UBS agreed to pay a historic fine and handed over the identities of thousands of American account holders. Shortly after, the United States enacted the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, forcing banks worldwide to report American assets or face crippling economic sanctions. The rest of the international community quickly followed suit. By 2018, Switzerland officially adopted the Global Automatic Exchange of Information standard. For the first time in over 8 decades, Swiss banks began routinely sharing account data with tax authorities in over 100 countries. The era of the anonymous numbered account, the legendary black hole where money vanished from the world's view, was officially over. So, with the statutory veil of absolute secrecy torn down by global regulators, did the trillions of dollars flee the Alpine vaults? Did Switzerland lose its crown as the capital of global wealth? The answer is a resounding no. In fact, total wealth under management in Swiss banks has continued to climb, hovering around a staggering $8 trillion today. How is this possible? Because while the world was obsessed with the secrecy of the 1934 law, they overlooked the true underlying foundation of Swiss banking: unmatched, centuries-old financial security. Even without statutory secrecy, Switzerland remains the ultimate global safe haven because of what surrounds those vaults. It boasts a fiercely independent, hyperstable political system that has not experienced a domestic revolution or foreign invasion in over 200 years. It possesses one of the world's strongest and most reliable currencies, the Swiss franc, backed by a central bank with legendary fiscal discipline. And it offers a rock-solid legal system, strong property rights, and a concentration of elite wealth management expertise that simply cannot be replicated anywhere else on Earth. Today, the world's ultra-wealthy no longer move their capital to Geneva simply to hide it from a tax collector. They move it there to protect it from systemic banking crises, currency devaluation, geopolitical volatility, and domestic economic collapse. The Banking Act of 1934 may have birthed the legend of the anonymous account, but it was the country's relentless pursuit of stability that built an enduring empire. The Alpine fortress has adapted to the modern world, trading the shadows of secrecy for the armor of security, ensuring that as long as the global economy remains volatile and unpredictable, the world's elite will always keep their treasure locked safely in the mountains of Switzerland.